What's up guys, welcome back to another YouTube video. I know I've been gone for a while, but I'm back now and I'm happy to be back. So a lot of you guys have been wondering why I haven't been making videos, where I went, and what's been going on more generally. So I did want to make this video to kind of give you all updates on what's been going on in my life. And I do want to be very honest, very truthful, and very open about why I've had such a long hiatus from YouTube. I'm not the best at this. I'm not the best at like being serious, I guess, and really going into like some of these personal things. So I'm going to give it my best shot, but there's no way I can do that like looking like this. So all right, so where should I begin? Well, I think I'll kind of go back in history a bit. In May of 2016, I was hospitalized. I was sent to a psychiatric hospital for roughly 10 days. At the time, I was extremely depressed. I frankly didn't want to be alive, and I was a student at MIT at the time, and MIT decided for my own safety that they were going to send me to an inpatient psychiatric hospital where I could get some help. This was around the summer of my junior year in school, and I wish that like I went to the hospital and I was magically better after I got out, but that just wasn't the case. I spent that whole entire summer just absolutely miserable. I think the crazy thing is I've always been the happiest person. Ever since I was little, like always a smile on my face. Everything, even if it was homework, it was fun. I was loving life. To go from that to, being in a inpatient psychiatric hospital was just really hard for me to believe. Like I just couldn't understand what the heck happened. I felt like I threw my life away. I felt like I was never going to be better. I just was absolutely miserable. Long story short, I spent the entire summer absolutely miserable. I actually had an internship in Silicon Valley, and I went like 3 days, and I was just so anxious and so depressed that I just flew immediately back home to my parents in New Hampshire. So I didn't even do the internship. What I'm getting at is over that summer, I didn't think things would ever get better, but eventually around like August time, right before I was supposed to start my senior year, like poof, I was feeling happy again. It was crazy. It was like I was in the darkest pit of hell, and then within 24 hours I was happier than I had ever been. And with that, I honestly had the best senior year. I didn't take anything for granted. I loved life. I made the most of senior year, and I had an absolutely great time. But I think the thing that really was a problem about this whole situation was that because I had transitioned from miserable to happy so quickly, I didn't take any time to reflect on what made me so miserable in the first place. How did I get that low? Because I was so focused on living again, once I started feeling better. Kind of fast forward till, the past 6 months, past 9 months, past 4 years, I guess. I stayed very, very happy throughout graduating MIT. I got my master's, and overall just was really loving, being graduated, being a full-time adult, like loving the independence of living on my own. I didn't, depression was a thing of the past. I didn't know, I didn't think I would ever go back to that spot. Then the pandemic hit, and pandemic, as it did for many people, it really changed my day-to-day. I was in a really good rhythm, I feel like, before the pandemic. I was working at a startup. I would go to the office pretty early. I would get like a midday workout in, and then go back to the office, work some more, write some code, do whatever was needed. I was enjoying the team that we were building. I joined the startup as one of the founding members, and by the time I left, it was 30 plus people, and in the office it was a lot of fun. Like the group was really, really talented, really fun to be with. But when the pandemic hit, we were forced to work remote, and that was kind of a blessing and a curse, I would say. It was a blessing because for our business, we were building conversational AI products, and so with everyone working remote and just people being out of work, conversational AI tools, there was tons and tons of demand. People wanted extra assistance any way they could get it, and creating AI to help with routine tasks was hugely popular. So from a startup perspective, we started growing very, very fast. From the curse side of things, it was a lot less fun working in the same bedroom, same desk, day after day, hour after hour. The routine got really old really fast, and it just wasn't as fun. And things were fine though. It was just, I was kind of ready for going back to the office. I was ready to hang out with friends again. I was ready to go out and do things. I was living in the city, but you couldn't really do much in the city. You couldn't really capitalize on the fact that you were living in a city. So where am I today? Well, I'm unemployed. I'm living with my parents. And how did I go from, just working remotely to complete 180, kind of being back where I started? Well, that kind of that unhappiness of working remote slowly grew and grew over time. As our company grew, my position changed. And so I started out as a software engineer, did a lot of natural language processing research. But as we acquired more and more customers, I had a very solid understanding of our product, but at the same time, I would say a pretty good ability to interact with our customers and really teach them how our product worked and act as the project manager for them. So my official title at the company changed to head of customer success. With that, I was kind of the head honcho. I was responsible for all the clients we worked with. Sometimes I wasn't responsible directly, but if something went wrong, I was the person that would get messages, get emails, get calls to look into things. And there's a lot of benefit to getting to be client-facing. You get to see firsthand, if people are really loving your product, you get to see firsthand that excitement. And as someone that comes from a software engineering background, it's pretty dang nice to build a feature and then see someone right there get excited about it. I think oftentimes software engineers are kind of behind the scenes. They don't get to see that actual end user get excited about their product. But I think the downsides of being in customer success is there's tons and tons of responsibility. I was developing all sorts of routines. I was getting really good, I would say, at okay, how are we going to streamline this? How are we going to scale this process quicker to deal with the increase in customers? But I only could do that up to a point. And I would say around last March or so a year ago from today, basically, I really started to be unhappy with work. I started just getting really, really anxious about my day-to-day tasks. I just was always worried that at any time of day, any day of the week, I would get some sort of call that a system broke, they were unhappy with something, that something was a security risk, just anything could go wrong. I was just always worried that I would get this message, get this call, and I would have to be ready to work at all times. That anxiety just kept growing and growing over time. And at first I could kind of handle it. I would often go for runs in the middle of the day just to kind of calm my nerves. I would take cold showers in the morning to also calm my nerves. But I had a limit. As I did those things to try to handle the stress that I was feeling, the stress just kept growing, and I got to a point where I could no longer cope. And kind of at that time, I was like, okay, I'm a founding member of this company, but I can no longer do this. I want to do other things. I want to, make YouTube videos. I want to, I love tutoring. I want to tutor more. I want to do freelance projects. I just couldn't take the pressure anymore. So I knew, okay, it's time to get out. Getting out as one of the original members of a team is tough. And also just having all of these client relationships was really, really tough. Growing up, I never quit anything, I would say. If there was a hard task, a hard project, I would just grind and get it done and make sure that the final product was the best quality possible. Make sure that the people receiving that product were really happy. In a lot of ways, I attribute that kind of quality, that perfectionism to, I guess, a lot of the kind of successful things that I've done. Like graduating at the top of my high school class, going to MIT, being successful at times in athletics. It was because I was really willing to work hard and grind, and so quitting was just kind of not something that I did. When I decided I needed to quit the company, I felt like I was letting everyone down. I felt like people were going to be unhappy with me. They weren't going to, all these relationships I built, that people were just going to be like, oh, he quit on us. And I felt like not only with my coworkers, but also the clients that I felt like I was letting down. The decision to quit was the right one, but it was added to that already ever-mounting stress and anxiety that I was feeling. I wanted to quit the best way possible, so I let our co-founders know at the start of summer that, hey, at the end of the summer, I'm headed out. I'm going on to do new things. August 20th is going to be my last day. I'm going to do all I can to hand off things as gracefully as possible until then. I would say that day that I told the founders what was going on and that I was going to be quitting, I finally felt relief for the first time in months. I felt like this huge weight was off my shoulders. I enjoyed the weekend, I remember. Things were good. But I would say around Sunday night, that relief just completely evaporated. I realized, this, oh shoot, all the stress, all the anxiety you've been facing for months and months now, you have to deal with that for 3 more months. And I just didn't know how I was going to get through. All I could think about, the way that I approach problems is, okay, I have 3 months, we're going to just work as hard, do as much as possible until this is over. By doing that and taking that approach, I really just neglected myself. My well-being, the things that I enjoyed, the friends that I loved to hang out with, all of that was an afterthought. I just needed to do this job and do this job right and leave on the best note possible. So those 3 months were extremely difficult for me. Every day I just got more anxious and more anxious. I would just pace around my apartment left and right. Like my roommate was even noticing that I was doing this. I would call my mom crying like every other day. I would, put on a smile for these customer calls, but afterwards I would just collapse in my bed. I just was really not doing well. It's crazy because looking back, it's so obvious, like all the same warning signs of that previous incident, what ended me up in a psychiatric hospital back in 2016, all of those signs were present again. But in the moment, I was so focused on doing everything the best I could. I didn't see those signs. I didn't realize how poorly I was doing, how upset, how anxious, how miserable, how depressed I was. So I just kept grinding away. Day by day, I would say that I got worse and worse. I just kept trying to push through. I would go on multiple runs a day just because that was the only thing that gave me a little bit of calm to keep on pushing. But I just really was not coping well. I started having to go home to parents' house in New Hampshire on the weekends. I left Boston and would go there for the weekend just to kind of escape all of it for a bit. That turned into, on the weekends, it was, okay, I'm gonna work a whole week from home in New Hampshire because at least I can be open. Even though I was very close with my roommate, I could be way more honest and about how I was feeling with my parents and with my sister, my brother. So I just kept pushing through, I kept grinding, and just as I was kind of doing that, it just felt like every little thing was going wrong, at least in my head. Clients were unhappier than ever, things were breaking more frequently than ever. I just felt like I was really letting the team down, but I just kept going, and I just was really struggling to make it through each day. The only time I got any sort of peace was when I was sleeping. But I kept pushing, and eventually I did get to that August 20th date. I did, say all my goodbyes to coworkers, teammates, and I tried my best to keep a smile on my face. But after that day, I just completely collapsed. I just was so extremely burnt out. I was so anxious. I was so depressed. Really, again, didn't see the point in anything. Every day was a struggle. Nothing gave me any pleasure. I was absolutely miserable. And I think it's one thing to feel all those sadness, anxiety, the depression, etc. The thing that really made everything 10 times worse for me, I got to that point, I was finally done. I should have been really happy because now I can make YouTube videos. I can do all these things that I wanted to do. But when you're going through depression, when you're going through anxiety, some of those kind of core things that make you aren't there. I just felt like I couldn't code. My mental capacity just was terrible. I felt like I had no memory. I felt like I was so slow at thinking. And for someone that has always defined myself, speaking in the third person, I've always defined myself as smart, capable. When I was feeling like this, I was just I'm such a fraud. I definitely had that imposter syndrome. If I saw old friends or whatnot, I didn't want them to bring up work. I didn't want them to bring up school. I just wanted to really hide. And after finishing work, that's kind of what I did. I just hid. I just hoped that if I slept enough, if I sat on the couch, did nothing enough, that all my problems would just go away. I don't know, it just was like that for a while. I did very, very little. I didn't code. I didn't really go out and see friends. The things that I did do, few and far between. I still managed to play hockey on a weekly basis, but hockey is usually a blast for me, and through all this, it was just something I was kind of scared to do. I didn't want to do. I didn't want to be in the locker room with people, but I did it anyway. I played golf a decent amount. Thank my brother for getting me out onto the course, and I wasn't happy golfing, but I felt a little bit of relief maybe. There was 2 or 3 friends I saw maybe once a month. I really didn't see friends much. I didn't want to see friends. I didn't want to explain what was going on. Yeah, so life was just really tough, and I just really needed to get better as quick as possible, but I just didn't have much hope of getting better. even though I had been through a situation like this before, like it was hard for me to like, I just felt like for some reason this was different. Like I wasn't gonna get better this time. And when you're going through something like this, it's kind of like your brain like lies to you. You think things that just aren't true at all, but it's hard to see that. It is so tough because you 100% believe the tricks that your mind is playing on you. But eventually, so, at the end of summer, I left the job. I moved back home with my parents, and, that was my decision to not renew my lease in Boston. But by the time I'd actually moved back in with my parents, I felt like such a failure. Like, you graduated MIT and now you're like 26 years old and living with your parents. Like, who are you? Like, you're pathetic. I just really hated myself for living with my parents. And I'm super grateful that I could live with my parents because they kept me going. They fed me. Took me out, took me to church, kept a little bit of routine in my day-to-day. I am tremendously grateful for the love my family showed me throughout this time. But okay, I guess like with all that said, eventually I'm feeling great now. And kind of how did I get from feeling terrible to great? Started very slowly. Found a counselor in the area that I started to go see weekly. And honestly, I think I'll see a therapist, counselor for the rest of my life. I think it's good to get that unbiased perspective on what's going on. Even if things are good, like it's just helpful to be able to talk to someone that can think very logically about situations you're going through and has tools and skills that you can apply to whatever you're going through. So I started seeing a therapist weekly, and it wasn't like that magically helped me get better, but it was good to at least have someone that I could vent everything that I was going through to. Around the same time, I found an app called Cerebral. They do like counseling, they do therapy as well, but the big thing that they did that was helpful for me was that they could prescribe antidepressants to individuals. And back in 2016, I think one of the things I attribute to recovering was taking the antidepressant Zoloft. And I'm not a doctor and every person's situation is different, but for me, I think that made a huge difference in getting me feeling good again. So it's definitely something worth talking with a doctor about to see if maybe it's worth trying if you are going through something yourself. So I found this app called Cerebral. I got prescribed Zoloft and Wellbutrin. So I started taking antidepressants every day. I started, I was going to therapy. And I think a big thing too was just time. I went from like hating myself because I felt like I let the team down to like slowly feeling like, okay, I don't care that I let the team down, but I hate myself for feeling like I can't use my brain anymore. I can't concentrate. Like I hate myself for letting myself get to that point. So like my hatred for myself was changing. Eventually, that changed even further to like, okay, I'm not happy, but I don't hate myself. And it was just very slow. Like months and months went by, and I would say that there wasn't a single day that I was happy. Very, very slowly over time, all these kind of pieces started building me back up to not being as miserable, and not being as miserable turned into, okay, like I feel like I kind of have some direction. Like maybe I won't make tutorials on YouTube, but I can at least make a video explaining what's going on. So I went from that, and shortly after that, I would say like after I kind of felt like that good, maybe a week after that, I really went from, I would say like 50% to 100%, and was so excited to start feeling good and felt like I could think again because there were so many ideas and so many things that I wanted to do on YouTube and do on other platforms that now I felt like finally I have a chance to do that. So that's kind of where I am here. Pretty long story, but I think I felt like it was definitely worth sharing and being open and honest. A lot of these details I haven't told to, my closest friends, but if this video could just help one person that's going through something, it's totally worth it. I guess some things that I want to say before I kind of end this video. If you're going through something hard right now, as bleak as it might seem, if you can't see any sort of light at the end of the tunnel, just my one piece of advice is do your best to hang in there. I definitely at times had kind of given up, just didn't see what the point was. But being on the other side and knowing like how great things can be, if you just hang in there long enough, things can turn around. The storm can kind of wither down and things can be great again. So I think that's all I have. I guess the last thing I wanted to say, and I figured that I'm not going to monetize this video, but I figured I could still make it for a good cause. So I added a charity to this video. Should be able to see the details of the charity on like the left or right side. That charity is Movember, and they're doing a lot for men's mental health And they do all sorts of things for men's health in general, but they do a lot for awareness of men's mental health. They do a lot for suicide prevention. Really just a good organization specifically kind of targeting men's mental health. No one needs to donate, but if you're looking for a good cause to support, definitely it's worth donating. I'm going to make a donation myself. Yeah, thanks guys for listening. That's all I have on the serious side. All right, that's all the updates I wanted to give in this video. Some more logistical things. A lot more videos are coming out soon. I'm gonna do another video on kind of what I'm planning moving forward, so be on the lookout for that. As always, make sure to absolutely smash that like button, subscribe button, and don't forget to follow the other socials. Boom, 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 boom. Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, GitHub, TikTok, MySpace. All right, that's all we are doing in this video. Thank you all for watching. Really happy to be back. More videos very soon. Peace. This is not even a real coffee. I just love Dunkin's. If you're watching this and you know anyone at Dunkin's that can hook me up, please do so because I freaking love Dunkin's. Peace out.